Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. This is our December HubTalk. There's a lot of new people, so I'll briefly tell you all that are constantly spreading the message of the Mid-Columbia Innovation Hub. If you're unfamiliar, like, I don't know what this is, I just saw this and I'm coming. Mid-Columbia Innovation Hub, it's a project of Business Oregon run through Mid-Columbia Economic Development, putting together a hub of hubs, a number of statewide innovation hubs. A lot of words there that are inside of words like innovation, but we'll get to that later. The main goal is to create one central space where people in startups, founders, small businesses, entrepreneurs can come and access the resources that they need. Number one, through networking and meeting other people, because it's all about your network. Number two, hopefully some sort of educational component of these hub talks. We hear from other small businesses, hear about their journey, their stories, where they've been. We also want to make sure we're able to connect. I was just talking with Debbie, where there are people, wherever they're at in their small business or entrepreneurship journey, you don't know what you don't know. And so having one central place, one central hub where you can come and we can direct you to the places where you need, whether it's access to capital, whether it's business training resources, whether it's technical assistance, accounting, marketing, financial advisors, whatever you need, we want to put you in the right place. So, my name is Jacob. I'm a venture catalyst with the Columbia Innovation Hub, and kind of the navigator to help work you through that ecosystem to help identify what you don't know. So, welcome to our Hub Talk. I want to introduce our panelists tonight. Have a little descriptors on the screen. I'm going to let you both introduce yourself briefly, like a paragraph. Okay, a paragraph.
Yeah, no pressure.
Two or three sentences.
Hey, nice to meet everybody. I'm Trina McAlexander Galloway. I'm a farmer up in the area who decided it would be fun to do more interesting things with fruit besides sell it directly, and I started doing fermentation and other things like that. It's an honor to be here tonight. Thanks for inviting me, Jacob. I'll be honest with you, I worked all day today as a nurse practitioner, so I might be a little fried, but I'm really excited to be here, and thank you for having me.
Hi everyone, I'm Debbie Hendricks, and I own Swell Gelato for Dogs. So we make gelato for dogs right here in the Dalles, which I started in 2016 in a dog park with a gelato cart, which looked a whole lot like her little cart, the blue one, but mine was orange.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so that's how we started, and now we have our own Swell factory here in the riverfront.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. If you signed up on the Eventbrite or whatever, we know the theme tonight is Beyond Local, which is my way of kind of introducing something that we have a little emphasis on with the Innovation Hub. Words that we talk about are traded sector. And I talk with that with a lot of people, like, I don't know what that means. And that's okay, that's fine. It's insider talk. When we talk about traded sector, there are two kinds of things when we think about local economy. Both are super important. There are tons and tons of people that we know in our circles that are this local business. It keeps money circulating. You know, when we get a massage, we want to go to our favorite massage therapist. When we get a cup of coffee, we want to go to our favorite coffee shop. We don't go to, sometimes, we don't go to the big chains or whatever because we want to support our friends and our neighbors and all that. But there's another factor of traded sector, and that the traded sector is trading goods and services that bring money into our local economy, so then that sort of keeps going as well. So we sell products outside of our region. That could be our city, our state, our country, whatever our region is. When I keep thinking about, we had our economic symposium a month or so ago, and something I heard a lot was everyone getting ready for the winter. It's going to be snowing, foot traffic's going to die down. We're concerned, our numbers are going to go down. January, February, we start to hurt. How do we counteract that? One thing I want to really hope that we can develop and through this conversation is how do we start thinking differently about, just instead of just saying, oh man, well, it's going to be rough the next couple months. Like, how can we look at how we do things differently to expand our market, expand what we do, and think differently. So I think these two ladies are lovely examples of thinking differently, facing challenges here in Gorge. Yeah, I appreciate it. So thanks for coming. I have a few questions I'm gonna ask. So I'm looking at my phone. I'm looking at my phone for questions. I'm not distracted. First question. I want to talk to you guys about your the vision and the transformation. And with this, like, weave in like some stories about how you started your businesses, how you things have changed. But what inspired you to move beyond a local focus? Was it a gradual decision, or did a specific opportunity or challenge push you in that direction? We'll start with Trina, and then hand it over to Debbie. If you need me to reread it.
It's really exciting to be in a room with people who love to be creative and have the courage and bravery to think about owning your own business or scheme and dream about business ownership. I worked full-time in medical field for most of my 20s and a big part of my 30s, so I could save up enough money to buy my parents' small family farm. And it was something that I wanted to do because I knew that I wanted to make some changes on their farm to make it match more about the things I was passionate about. And I also felt very compelled to make those changes because when I looked at their QuickBooks, I noticed the financial situation, which a lot of times creativity comes out of a place that we're not making it financially. So what can we do instead? Because I really think there's a lot of value of keeping small family farms in families and not selling to bigger, larger farms. So a lot of the innovations that I made and the things that I created was all about keeping our small family farm financially sustainable, creating jobs in our community, and doing things that I was really passionate about in farming versus doing things that my parents had done or my grandparents had done. So I guess financially we needed to make that change. And also what I was passionate compelled me to make those changes.
For me, I kind of totally stumbled into this. I had a whole different life before I started making gelato for dogs. I was a corporate retail fashion buyer, and I did that for 18 years and loved it. I tend to joke and tell people I used to wear foreign shoes to work, and now I drive a forklift. They're both fun. Anyway, so that career came to an end, and that was in May of 2016, and I wanted to do something completely different and fun for the summer and just all about me before I started again. And so I found out really quick that everybody else was still working, so it was really hard to do fun things when all my friends were working during the week. So then my great idea was, well, I love dogs and I love making gelato. I want to surround myself with dogs for the summer because that to me is like that idea of a good time. So I got a little gelato cart and I went to a local dog park. And because I was already making a lot of gelato, my boyfriend loves ice cream. So I was making a lot for him and then special stuff for the dogs. And so anyways, it was a small investment and I thought that was going to be so much fun. So I went to a Seattle dog park with my cart. Super interesting experience because there was only two reactions. And either people would be like, oh my God, that's like the greatest thing ever. Or they would be like, good luck with that. But then even after a while, those people would come in or would come by because we're outside and buy stuff for their dogs and they'd come back the next week. And so basically during that summer, like it was just such a positive response. And to be honest, the best part was like, I love seeing the dogs happy, of course, because I love dogs. But to see the people be so happy that their dog was happy, then it made me happy. And it was like this little happy circle, right? But you know, it was Seattle and summer came to an end and I didn't have a vision for being in the dog park in the rain and the cold. So I did actually still go on interviews for a corporate job because I felt like I had to be an adult. But every time I did and I'd get to the final round, I just had this feeling like, if I don't go for it, I'm gonna always regret it. And so I went for it. And then 8 years later, here we are. And so knowing that I couldn't just sustain myself with selling out the dog park, I naturally knew that I was gonna have to come up with a way to, make that bigger.
Oh, awesome. I didn't go to.
So kind of on that, I want to talk about this a little off script, so sorry. I tend to do that. Tell me about a time, like Devin, you just kind of mentioned, it's Seattle, it's rainy season, I can't do this in the dog park. Maybe a time or two or three where you're like, this is the moment where something needs to change. What catalyzed that? Just kind of openly talk me through the process of your thinking when that happened. Whoever wants to go first.
I think there was several of those moments. The first one obviously being when summer came to an end. And I was like, well, now what? And people were basically asking me where could we find this. So I had to come up with a plan to do this. Which then that plan was just making it out of my kitchen and just trying to get it in stores at first. So it's really small. And then you get to a point where, Seattle traffic is not that different from Portland traffic or whatever. You can only deliver so many stores, and you start realizing this is ridiculous. I'm on the road like 5 hours a day, and I still have to make all the stuff and do all the other things. So then, from there you make a decision like, okay, well, if I want to get in more stores, now I need to get a distributor. And then you get through that phase, and then you start realizing, well, now that I have this distributor, they want more product. I can't do that in my kitchen and my little chest freezer in the garage. So then I basically graduated from my kitchen to my boyfriend's garage in Seattle at the time, and he had a 2-car garage, and his nickname's MacGyver, like he's very handy, likes to play with, make things. So we had a lot of stuff. So I started in a small corner, but I ended up taking over the whole garage. Like I put basically half of the garage was freezer, walk-in freezer. So then that was that stuff. And then you outgrow that. Then you're like, well, and then we had COVID in the middle of all that. So I couldn't even hire anybody. So I was doing everything myself. And then you realize, okay, well, I can't grow being stuck in this garage doing everything myself. So then the next step was like, well, I'm going to buy a facility because I wanted to keep the integrity of the product, which is to make everything by hand with very little ingredients. And that's how I ended up here. Yes. And so then that was a big step. And then with that comes like, well, now you buy a freezer, a walk-in freezer, an outdoor reefer, like there's all that equipment. And then you grow. And then you realize, okay, but now if I want to grow more, I can't keep buying freezers because I'm running out of space. And even though I have this whole building, it becomes small really quick. So then, there's pivotal moments all throughout where you just have to change your track and leave. Yeah, and I think that's a really good way to put it. I think I was telling you earlier, maybe I was telling Jason, there's some parts on the journey where it's almost like if you think about it too much, you will never do it because it's scary. It's so scary, and you don't know all the outcomes going to work. But sometimes you gotta leave.
What was your rephrase the question? What was your leap? Talk about your leaps.
I'm just going to share one of the ideas that I did that I eventually had to stop because I realized it was not sustainable. Is that all right? Okay. So when I first bought my parents' orchard, I was really compelled to start an all-fruit CSA. And I had this all-fruit CSA, and we sold a bunch of it to people in the Dalles, in Portland. We had a bunch of people in Sandy. We had people in Hood River. I think I got up to 75 different boxes. And we were making these boxes on Monday, and then we would drag them around. And when I started to look at the amount of driving we were doing, maybe similar to what you were talking about, that I realized pretty quickly that at the end of the day, it really wasn't that profitable, and it didn't actually match my goals of trying to connect people to where their food comes from. And I really wanted people at the end of the day to be able to come on to our small family farm and experience what it's like to get fruit from the source, which is really, I know around this area it seems like, oh yeah, we all can do that anytime. but it's pretty rare in most of our country and a lot of the world to be able to visit a farm and be able to pick fruit off the tree. So I decided to shift focus because it didn't actually match my goal. And financially, it really wasn't on paper, it really wasn't playing out. And honestly, I did have some customers that were frustrated or bummed because I really started to enjoy that. But a lot of them were able to eventually start to be able to come onto our farm, and then they started coming onto our farm really regularly. And we eventually started some clubs for fruit clubs, and then we now have some clubs for our tasting room. We have a wine club, and those clubs and people who join, where they give you some sort of a payment, every 3 months, or so we have some monthly things. They really help sustain you financially. Because we're a pretty micro business. We might be a little bit different in the sense that we aren't distributing in every store, or there's a real emphasis where we're at that people come to us and get it. We do have a few places that we sell, but a lot of it is connecting people back to the land, this idea of farming, fermentation, and hospitality. So I guess I felt compelled to share that story because there's going to be some ideas that you have that just are awesome, and they're maybe even popular and people are really supporting them. But when you look at your line items and you go to your QuickBooks, they actually aren't going to make it. So that's a good time where you have to pivot and leap into something else. You have to have the courage sometimes to let go of something that felt like your baby for something that's actually better. So move from your garage into another thing because that's the next best step, even though it feels like it's going to take courage to let go of the thing that you were doing.
That's great. Transport you back to first inklings of business. That was 2017, Trina?
Oh, I got 14.
14?
Yeah.
Debbie?
16.
16, okay. So we're talking, 10-ish years ago for both of you. Talk me through, at that moment, what did you think? Where did you see it going? What was your vision for it? Was it keeping small, or was it growing bigger? Did you just want to stay local, or did you have goals to reach, the state, or tourists from all over the world, or Top Chef TV notoriety, or something like that? How is your original vision from that time when you started, how you saw it in the future to what it actually is now? How are those different? How are they the same? And talk me through that experience. I'm going completely off that question. But that's okay.
That's a good question. I think for me, in the beginning, I didn't even know what it could be. I didn't know this could be a thing. It is such a crazy thing. And all I was going off was people's reaction in the dog park. Now there is some competition out there. It's more mass produced. It's not the same quality. They use a lot cheaper ingredients. So I was going for a high-end dog item because the ingredients are expensive. Everything about it is expensive. It's handmade. So my vision in the beginning, I think, was not too far out. I do have to say I had a bit of a safety net because I was in that corporate job, so I did get a severance. But even with that, I had to do things like VRBO at my house. I would stay at my boyfriend's house because I had a mortgage to pay, and the severance wasn't going to last that long. But I did have a bit of a buffer, and that bought me some time just to test and see, is this viable? Is this working? Are people going to pay for this? And so then, as I was getting in store, so within the first year, I knew that I wanted to be national and potentially international. But I was very conservative at first with my vision. But I will share something that a friend of mine from when I was still working my corporate job before, and she was in packaging and advertising and all that. And so she gave me this excellent advice that when you're, because I was sharing my idea before I even started, and I need a logo. She's like, okay, when you're thinking about this, everybody wants to think small in the beginning, but you can't do that because you can't keep changing your logo, like you'll confuse people. So think of it as like Debbie's little gelato cart, but then think of it like a storefront, which was never my plan, but think of that. And think of it like on a billboard or somewhere really big. Just don't think too small. And I think that was really good advice. I did do that while I didn't know how the sales were going to pan out. I did design my packaging and my logo with all that in mind. So at least if this thing was going to work, it could have legs. Did I answer your question?
I think so.
Okay. Like, what was the question?
Talking about how your vision in the very beginning
Oh, yeah.
to reality now, how that's changed.
Yeah.
I think that's a great question. I think that at the core of the small businesses that I've started, there's still, the heart is still there, but there is this aspect of business, which I'm sure you all know, that you are constantly sort of shifting and figuring out what your customers are actually interested in. And then you kind of gotta go in a direction where there's the interest. So like I said, you've gotta like kind of hold, I'm gonna put the mic down for a second. You've gotta kind of hold the ideas in your hands loosely. None of them can be too personal, or none of them can be something that you grip, because there's gonna be this aspect of your business that you've gotta let go, or you've gotta give more attention to. And it could be something that you had no idea that was gonna be popular. So anyway, I just learned that some of the things that I thought were gonna be like, grand slams weren't. And other things that I had no idea. We get, phone calls, and we're getting invited into this like national or international opportunity that we had no idea that was coming or could expect it, but we were just willing to say yes to it. A lot of times you're saying yes to things that you have no idea the opportunity or the advertising aspect that's going to come. That will end up being like this massive gift to your business for years. So, but I already think entrepreneurs already are yes people. I mean, all of us in this room probably are saying yes a lot to a lot of things because we like the idea of being a part of something special. We like the idea of creating things together. We like this idea of teams coming together to produce something. So I hold your ideas loosely and also be willing to say yes or take a chance, take the leap and see what happens. Then evaluate it. Is it sustainable? Is it financially working out? Is it something that you still love? I think it's okay to take that kind of inventory with yourself and your team on a regular basis because at the end of the day, you want to love what you're doing. You want to really be passionate about what you're doing because I'm 47 and I have a lot more years working left. And so I want to really, at the end of the day, adore what I'm doing. And I do. I really still think it's really great. I think it's the best decision I ever made. I always feel like I left the city to buy my parents' small family farm, best decision of my life.
Is that a farm?
Yeah.
I want to talk about drastic left turn. It's easy to talk about our successes, the awesome things, the good feelings. I want you to think about a couple of, one or two challenges, things that came up. You
Just
didn't
two?
expect. Maybe like top tier kind of stuff. Think about like, oh my gosh, we talk about like where you take the lead. Where are places where you saw this roadblock in your life? Man, I have no idea what I'm going to do. Not only like how you eventually got past the roadblock or are currently working towards breaking down that roadblock, but like through the thought process, break that down on a smaller level, piece by piece. When it first happened, what was it? How you're continuing to go through that. Because I think that's something that's true for any small business. There are a lot of challenges. So what are some ways where you guys got inventive or had a unique thought or worked through some of those issues?
I'm
enjoying listening to your story. Thank you. So thank you for sharing. Gosh, seriously, there's so many phases of this business, right? And like I said before, every single one comes with a challenge. But if I have to boil it down to the biggest ones, I'll say this. In the beginning, and I think it's the same for anybody that starts their own business, you just work. You work, you work, you work, you work. That's all you do, right? And you can get so caught up in that because there is no time to think about that. Even if you love it, you just do it, and that's what it is. And it doesn't feel like work because you love it, and that's great. But then you get to a point where, like where I was, it's like, well, there is no more time in the day. I do have to sleep, and I want to grow this business. So then the step was buy this building here, and yes, that is a solution to one part of the problem. But then if you're going to keep growing, you need other things. And so for me, I think if anything, if you walk away with one thing that I say today, get help. Because, and I don't just mean help making, production help. Like the whole time I was in Seattle, which was basically the first 4 years, I was doing everything by myself. Part of that was because of COVID, you couldn't have meetings. But then I came here, and seriously, it's been such a gift. There are so many organizations, from the SBCD to the to you guys, to Build Oregon. Like there's so many organizations that will help you think through what you need, because you don't even know what you need. You're too busy working. You're too busy working in your business instead of working on your business. And so, if anything, whatever phase you're in, if you're still there doing everything yourself, take some time and reach out to somebody and say, this is where I'm at. This is kind of where I want to go. Help me. Like, who do I talk to? They can't solve it for you. You end up still having to do the work. But just having people guiding you through that and be like, well, I think you should probably talk to a bookkeeper. I don't, who knows if my taxes were right the first 4 years. Let's hope so. Or you need packaging automation equipment, which I did, which I ended up getting a grant for, but I would have never gotten that if I hadn't taken the time to stop to talk to one person who then will lead you to another person, and that that's where you guys would come in. So I think that out of everything was the biggest game changer to fix the biggest challenge overall.
I agree. I echo your team and the building of your team and paying attention to the people along your journey, because almost like a video game, it's like people are in your line of where you're headed on purpose because they're going to give you something for your journey. So pay attention to those people, because you don't know what you don't know, and there's a lot of times you're winging it as an entrepreneur. So kind of keep your ears open, stay really soft, stay really humble, ask people for help. I was gonna say, one of the biggest challenges for me, I don't know if you guys resonate in the room, is I would have this idea and I'd be like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. And I'd like tell my parents, they're like in their 70s, and they'd have this look on their face like, dear God, like don't lose our farm. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna build this wedding video. And my dad would be like, do you think anybody will come? And I was just like, that was his question every single time. And so then we would go to the county, and we wouldn't really know what we were doing, and we'd apply for the permit, because in farming, everything's very regulated. So you have to apply for a permit and get approval, and it's based on if your neighbors are okay with it. So those are always really long waiting for those permits. And if we would get the permit, then we'd be like, oh my God, we got the permit. And then we'd be like, well, but how are we going to pay for it? That was like, honestly, for me, it was always like, I feel like entrepreneurs always have these great ideas. Like they're just full of ideas. But then how do you actually pay for it? That's where we would definitely hit a wall, and then we have to get creative and talk to different people. Honestly, it's really hard to get funding from traditional banks on a farm. We had a lot of times where we would apply, we would tell them our idea, we'd show them the permit, and we'd get told no, or come back to us after a year and show us that you're profitable, and we're still having that experience. We're in the process of trying to build a home, and we just had that experience with a bank. And so like learning about nonprofits like McKen, or learning about nonprofits that finding out how to write grants, learning how to partner with other nonprofits in town, like Forge Grown or different things like that. We're totally a part of the success of what we're doing. Like we wouldn't be doing all that we're doing without all these amazing community partners who joined us along the way, funded us, put their faith in us, took a leap towards us so we could build these things. So your community and your networks and your teams, your relationships with nonprofits in town, your relationships, at the end of the day, they're the ones supporting small business owners. And I'm not saying anything negative about banks, so you're a bank. You work for a bank. I'm not trying to sound negative. I'm just honestly trying to be authentic. They're not always your best source of resource for your small business.
Can I add? Yeah. So I 100%, sorry,
great.
totally hijacked. I totally agree with what you said. Like, and I want to just add, because I think a lot of us who have an idea for a business that's not conventional, right? Sometimes your family and friends are not the best sounding boards. Just saying, I'm from Belgium, and my parents, I had a good career. I made good money. They're like, you can do what? And I'm like, I'm gonna go get a gelato cart and go to the dog park. And then, they came over for the summer, and Mom went to the dog park with me. She loves dogs like I do, and of course then she was excited. But they were still nervous.
Sure.
And, like my boyfriend was like, how are you gonna pay for things? So they're not, just to say that you kind of need a sounding board, like a support system that can talk you through a business plan or steps that you have to take, because you might face that initial criticism, which you can't blame the people. I mean, it is, sometimes they are crazy ideas, you have the vision, but they don't necessarily have the vision. So I think, yes, again, having a community that can guide you through the steps.
That's good.
It's kind of, you need that, because and the other thing is sometimes I feel like, because we have hard days, because even though we love what we do, these things are hard, and the money's not always there. And then you also don't feel like you can necessarily vent to your family, because they might already be a little bit critical in the beginning. So again, even more, having like a system that works with entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I agree. I confess I started an entrepreneur group, and I invited all my friends who own small businesses, and I go, join us on Thursday for an entrepreneur group. And all of them wrote me and I go, oh, that's great. Who leads it? Or tell us more about this, like this group. And I'm like, oh, we're actually just starting it. And it's gonna be us that is starting this group. And they thought it was like something that's been happening in Hood River for years. But I was just like, no, I just need a sounding board, and I need other people in small business. So I'm like, if you build it, they will come. And sometimes you need to build your own entrepreneur group and invite people that you know in small business, because one of the things that's been the most helpful about that is dealing with employee issues. Like when you're brand new in a business, you just kind of want to like accommodate everything, and you just don't know what you're doing with employees often. You're just blowing it left and right, and just hearing from another person who's been in business way longer than you, like it gives you the permission to like think about something differently, or maybe even determine that this person isn't a match for your company. And having that conversation is so helpful, because you're like in this new kind of stage of everything's going to work out, and all my employees are going to be loyal and help me, and it's just really helpful to have other people in the game who know entrepreneuring, they know small business ownership, who can talk you through things that you've never done before.
That's one more question. It's going to be kind of a combo question that I want to have a little time. If anyone has questions of your own, to bring up to our either our panelists, be thinking of them. But I wanted to talk about resources generally. Are there either specific or general resources that you think back and you just have in your heart, like, if I had known about this 5 years ago, things would have been so different. Like, everything happens for a reason, right? But wow, I could have not wasted so much time if I knew about this. And it can be specific, we've talked about like the UPs. And the other side of that, again, generally, what's something that you would either tell, 5, 7, 10 years ago, or a new hopeful entrepreneur, you would encourage them. So is there resources you would encourage other people to have that you wish you had, or is there advice that you could encourage people that you wish you had? That was a long question.
Okay. We are both a little intimidated by this question. If I were going to tell past me anything, I would tell myself that you can't determine in a short amount of time the success of something, or if something's not going to work. You do need to have kind of a timeline in your mind of how long you're going to trial something. But I think my heart used to rise and fall a lot on a single day or a single weekend. And now that I'm 10 years deep, I realize that it's really not about a weekend or even a season. That there's an ebb and flow in business that you can't always control. And you can have something really incredible, but then there could be a snowstorm. Or there's a lot of factors that don't necessarily determine if what you're doing is something that's successful or positive. So be really careful to make a judgment on what you're doing. Be really careful to let your emotions play with the success or the failure of what you're doing. I think in owning a business for a while and kind of learning from mistakes in the past or things that I would have done differently now, it's really important to use the higher part of your brain that's not so connected to this sense of failure. Because I do think that there's the question in all of our heads is this going to fail? Or is this going to make it? Or are we going to lose this spot in your head about your business? I think I've learned along the way that you can't make that decision or you can't make that determination in one season. You've got to really kind of play the long game in business. And I'll admit that I don't 100% work in my business. I work off the farm as well, and that's helped me during slow times. I haven't been able to totally give up my day job because I needed it sometimes to help me build or grow or be more attractive to banks, so they'll want to loan to me. I've always had that challenge with my business because it's on agricultural land that sometimes it makes people a little bit more anxious to invest in me. So I haven't let that be a barrier to me. I've just used it as, okay, well, that's a reality that I have to deal with. And that's one thing that I think is my superpower, is that I'm very resilient and I rebound fast. And when I get a no, I look for another opportunity. It's a green light until it's all red lights. And I always get back up when I hear a red light and say, there must be another window that I can go through. So I think I've learned anything being a farmer that you have to be scrappy and you have to just keep getting back up. There's some years that you have a bumper crop. There's some years where you have 10 pieces of fruit on your tree. There's nothing that you necessarily did wrong. It's just the way it works with our climate and in farming. And if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to own a business, you got to rebound quick.
Agreed. I have this analogy, whatever, strategy that I have to use for myself that actually came from my corporate experience before that one of my bosses have told me. And without this rule, I would panic a lot. But I feel like it's super helpful, because day to day, there's tornadoes and fires all the time. Like, things go wrong so often that sometimes we can't see the trees through forest or forest through trees, however you want to say that. So I say I have to go look at things from 10,000 feet. Because when I do, things are okay. I'm doing the things that I said I was going to do. I'm working towards the goals that I said I was going to do. Yeah, here everything's swirling and there everything's swirling. And I'm really stressed right now about 85 different things. But when I look at it from 10,000 feet, the plan that I set and the goals that I wanted to accomplish, I'm either on track or I'm working towards them at least. And I find that really helpful. It's kind of similar to what you're saying. And then your question for like resources, I will go back to, talk to Jacob. He can hook you up with the resources. It's made such a difference. I was part of an accelerator program this year. It's going to end in January. And they picked 10 entrepreneurs, 10 businesses. They're out of Portland. They're Livelihood Northwest. But there's so many versions of this. There's local stuff. There's community college has a bunch of programs. But what that does is it forces you to take the time and work on your business. And you need somebody, I think, at least I do, you almost need somebody to like twist your arm and be like, nope, we are sitting down and we are talking about your business. So you say you want to do that, that's great. How are you going to do it? And that is the stuff that takes time, right? It's like we all have so many ideas. Like I have more ideas that I could ever accomplish in this lifetime. But like when you actually have to sit down and be like, okay, yeah, well, in order to do that, we got to do this, and we're going to do that. It's going to cost this much, and it's going to take this time, and it's going to do this. You need to do that, and we so don't take the time as entrepreneurs because we're so busy working in the business. So whatever phase you're at, I feel like that is the best gift you can give yourself. Talk to Jacob.
Does anybody have questions for Pam? Don't be shy.
I did bring gelato for those of you that have dogs. Don't let me forget.
I'll ask this. Trina, we've known you for a long time and seen the changes in your farm. And I remember when we first kind of got to know you, and there still is like fruit and you pick, and then it's, maybe my memory is wrong, but it seems like you were doing more of the farm and developing that into cider. And it seems like there was a pivot at a certain point where you started to become Grateful Vineyard and focus more on wine? Or I'm curious about that. And what inspired or drove that, and sort of what that gave you, but also maybe what you lost or let go of.
Well, maybe I don't talk about it enough online, so that's good feedback. But like last year, we planted 300 more Newtown Pippin cider apples because our cider sales have gone up every year since we opened our cider. Your sales are up. Wine sales have been interesting. We have about 12 acres of grapes. We started with 0. We started our first planting in 2016. And I think we're up to now 300 cases of our own estate wine every year. But it takes a while to build up your production. We still have to buy some of our wine off the farm from my aunt and uncle in Elk Cove. But so we have separate kind of Instagrams for cider and beer and wine. So I'm not sure if you follow Golden Row Cider, but we're growing every year. We're actually pulling out a lot of our commercial pears and planting more cider apples. We're putting more like berries and things that we make blended ciders with. We just planted thousands of more Pinot Gris this year. We planted a Swiss varietal. My grandparents were Swiss. They immigrated here 100 years ago, so I put in a Swiss varietal that's white called Castellet. We put in Gamay Noir this year. So we're trying to get to 15 acres because according to somebody, that they determined when you have 15 acres, you're like a true winery. I think we're technically at 12. So anyway, I appreciate your question. Maybe that's good feedback for me to put a little more advertising into that. because we're definitely still growing our cider production and things are going well.
I think it can be hard when you've got two different, like they're not different businesses. You're doing all of them, but then they're two different brands, so more energy can go into one, or there's more notoriety or whatever about one versus the other. I don't know.
I mean, we definitely have people that are coming onto the farm that are more wine drinkers. We have a ton of people that drink cider as well, or a ton of people who drink our sodas or beer. They don't really compete.
Right.
Because there's something for everyone. We haven't found that we are having a dip in one because another one's growing. That hasn't been a challenge. But I appreciate the question, and I'm gonna put some more pictures up about our plantings of cider apples. Thank you.
One thing I hear a lot from business owners is that, and I think Debbie, you talked about this a lot as well, you spend so much time working in your business that it's hard to spend time working on your business and things like advertising, marketing, and getting the word out. And so I guess I'm hoping you can talk a little bit about kind of, you have the one skill that is doing this business, but then you also have to learn kind of this completely unrelated skill, which is marketing and advertising and getting the word out. So if you could talk a little bit about learning that skill on the fly and how that went.
Yeah, so that was actually the first thing that I kind of outsourced was social media, which is actually, that's pretty much my marketing. Like I was doing that myself too, but then I found that I'm not objective. I think all dogs are cute. Like if you post a picture of your dog with my gelato, I'm gonna share it. So I was sharing 3 times a day, 4 times a day, whatever. Sometimes, the same dog over and over, that's not strategic. So I found someone who I loved her account. She's a big dog lover. And so that was somebody that can be objective. So I provide her the material and she does the post. So that was like the first, as far as that marketing is concerned. I have dabbled in the last couple of years in a lot of different advertising and marketing strategies. Actually, I regret a lot of it because it was a lot of money that was spent for no return. And I think a lot of us think that I need to spend all this money on social media advertising. Before you know it, you spend $15,000 and you essentially got really nothing for it. So I find that staying true to my roots, if you will, and just keeping it like very, keeping the integrity of like, this is just a dog loving their gelato and like, it's real. It's not an influencer, it's an actual dog. And then we just share that. So, but that was the first thing that I outsourced, which was, I think, the easiest thing.
I was going to say that something that has been a strategy that I've done to work on my business versus like being in the trenches is I get a lot of my best ideas when I'm walking. And I've had a lot of moments where I'm just like walking the perimeter of the farm. And I apologize if it sounds too mystical. But I'll get an idea, or I'll get like this idea that will come. And I was gonna say, I started dreaming about buying my parents' farm when I was like 8 or 9. I saw like in my dream, like a picture of an adult version of me on the farm and handing somebody a refreshing drink. And I started dreaming about that. So I think there's a lot of benefit taking time away from your business to just, I don't know, think about it. I think there's been a lot of good moments when I wake up in the morning and I do some journaling around it, on what I'd really like to see shift or what I would like to see grow, putting some intention behind some of my ideas. I don't know, those little moments where you pause from just doing the job in front of you and kind of go to a higher level of thinking. All those moments really add up. And another thing that has been really beneficial to me is, I think in business, and especially in agriculture, there's all these uncertain things. You can really get caught up with things that make you feel really paralyzed with anxiety. I think being a business owner, you can really get overwhelmed by all the things that could go wrong. You can really spend a lot of time thinking about mistakes you made in the past or future things that could go wrong or worries. For me, it's been really helpful to ground myself in the present with the practice of gratitude. And that's the name of our tasting room. People think, we get a lot of questions about, is it an ode to Grateful Dead? Or is it an ode to something cooler than I've ever even thought I could be? And no, it's just been an ode to this idea of practicing gratitude, writing in my journal, staying really tuned into what's going on today. I think as entrepreneurs, you can get so future-minded that you're really losing touch with like, what are we doing right now to offer some service to our neighbors? You can get so like the 10,000. I love that, by the way. But also, it's really important as the owner of your business to think, how am I helping this person right in front of me? And imagining your customers, the ones that come regularly, thinking of your loyalist customers, thinking of the people who've joined your club. What am I offering them to make them want to continue to come and visit my business? Those kind of moments where you're writing it out, you're thinking about it, for me when I'm walking, have been critical to our success.
Thank you.
Okay, time for one more.
I'll happily go. So first, just thanks for sharing your experiences. I've learned a lot and have enjoyed hearing from both of you. So I'm the president at our college, and so my question is a little bit about like the intersection between our public infrastructure and public institutions and you as private business owners, and how we can make sure those relationships are strong and healthy. And so what are some of the things that are barriers to you on the public infrastructure side? And what are things like, what do we need to do to help ensure that the public sector is supporting your work as entrepreneurs so we can grow and have successful businesses such as your own?
All right.
So do you mean like infrastructure wise or like grant wise or a little bit of both?
Just, I think a little bit of both. I mean, so if I can give you examples, like we thankfully just passed our bond. If you voted yes, thank you very much. But like, so we're going to invest in a commercial kitchen, and we have lots of freezer space. So like, there's ways I think we can support Swell,
Yes.
and I know there's ways we can support Trina, your vineyard as well. So it's like, what are ways we can use our public resources to support your work?
And that's actually a great question, because before I bought this building, I don't know if you know this.
I'm your neighbor.
Yeah, I know. You have a dog, I know. But before you came, before I bought the building, I was actually talking to Greg about using the kitchen. It wouldn't have worked out for my particular situation because there's too many trucks that come and go now. But 3 years before that would have been awesome. So providing that, which you guys do for several businesses, they can start making, if they have a food product, they can start making it in that kitchen at a very reasonable rate. I think that is great. That would have been, I would have been all over that like 5 or 6 years ago instead of like hijacking Brad's garage. So I think that's awesome. So building that out and really having that facility is great. So that's on the infrastructure part, because that is often, it's a barrier. If you are in, well, I guess any business and you got to make something, well, where are you going to make it? You need somewhere to make it. Not everybody has a garage or that they completely can take over. So providing that, I think, is super helpful. Providing just knowledge of where you can get funding. And funding is a big word, and it doesn't always mean investors. I don't have investors. I'm probably silly that way, but I like to be control. And so I've just kind of bootstrapped it, and I can only do things as I go along, and I have to be profitable, because then I can do the next thing, the next thing. But I have had a grant. I've had a great grant to help with the packaging equipment, but I wouldn't have known about that if, like, Greg, I think, introduced me to Michael Held, who then, helped me with the grant. So it's all business, no matter how you look at it, is about people. Sell to people, but you have to know people who know things that you don't know, who can help you all along the way. So I think, one, providing the infrastructure, great, college is already doing that. Two, providing the knowledge, helping whoever can help with that, I think is super helpful.
I have really warm memories of going to the community college and meeting with the small business. I worked with somebody named Rick, is it Leibowitz? Is that his name? Yeah. And he did a lot of coaching with me, and I went to him a few times when funding would fall through, and just problem solving with him and hearing his ideas of, oh, did you know you could possibly get funding for this or through that, and just that person to kind of bounce stuff off of, and definitely was like critical in the ability to keep moving forward. And so thank you for offering that service. And everybody, if you have the opportunity to go and meet at the Small Business College, it was nothing but beneficial to me. I have nothing but the highest regards. And so just offering that service and letting the community know. I didn't really know about it, but I started getting the word out better. I didn't know. And I know I listened to a lot of podcasts on how to do marketing. Like I listened to StoryBrand a lot, and Don Miller, and inviting people to feel like a hero of this story of your business. And I did a lot of stuff like that, but I think just learning from one, meeting with one another, talking business ideas with one another. The more you can get ideas from the people in your circle, the better. There's also an aspect of business where you do kind of want to hold your cards close. And there aren't always people, like we were talking about, that are going to get your idea or understand your vision. So you do have to be a little bit judicious who you share it with, but in the same breath, when you create a community where you can talk about it, like this group that you guys created, being able to talk about those things and have safety, whether you're at the Small Business College or amongst other entrepreneurs, it's really important because you sometimes will get a piece to your puzzle that's like the last. Okay, now I can move to the next spot in my journey. And so your community and your team, the resources at the Small Business College, places like McKenna, stuff like that, all those things have been really a part of the success of what I'm doing up in Parkdale. Like it's not a solo effort at all. It's been a whole community making it work.
Okay, very last question. 30 seconds.
Oh, we're not good at those.
Plug yourself. How can we buy from you? How can we give you money? How can we support your business? What are you doing? And then Debbie can hand out the money.
Okay.
This is after 30 seconds. Take your time.
Be a regular somewhere. I would be happy if you were a regular at my spot, especially if you live nearby or you know somebody who has a spot. Show up often and support their business. Consider joining their club. Our wine club, cider club, beer club, they're the backbone of our business. We always, at the end of the day, they are the ones that have partnered with what we're doing and they keep us afloat, especially this time of year. If you live in this area where people are growing apples, they're making beer, they're making wine, be a part of a club. I think it's important as an entrepreneur to notice people who are doing small business things and resist the urge to buy like Coors Light and try to buy from a local brewery.
For me, well, you can buy, so Swell now is it's in over 1,000 stores nationwide. But
Wow.
locally here, we are Shannon's Ice Cream. So we don't have a small pet store here in Dallas anymore. So Shannon's Ice Cream, if you haven't been, which I'm sure you all have, her stuff's delicious. And she has Swell. So she's the girl in Dallas. And then in Hood River, both of the pet stores, so the one in the Heights and then the one downtown, they both have pet stuff too. But then, and this is uncomfortable for me, we're gonna do it anyways, since you asked. I am actually, so I got another grant this year, and if you're women entrepreneurs, I will tell you about this because it's great. It's called the Amber Grant for Women. It's True Women's Network. They hand out a lot of money every month. They hand out $10,000 grants every month and a $25,000 grant every month. And then you're in the running at the end of the year to get another $25,000 grant. I got the $10,000 grant for July, which was their animal category. And I mean, realistically, that one probably didn't have as many entries as the other categories, but hey, I'll take it. So I got that one. But now I'm in the running for the $25,000 year-end one. And part of that is they want votes. And I never ask people for votes, but since I'm here and since you asked, if you go to my Instagram, Swell Gelato for Dogs, Instagram or Facebook, it's like a couple days ago, there's a link on there. You don't have to give your email address or phone number, nothing. You just
Yeah, we're voting.
click on the link and go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cross your fingers.
That's great.
I voted.
Congratulations.
Thank you. See you soon.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But thank you for having us. It's great. It's great to be able to talk.
Can we give them a round of applause?
Yeah.
We still have space for a limited time, so please clean up the charcuterie board. We still have water, listen, water here. Have a drink if you're safe. If you want.
Drive safe.
Drive safe. Native Provisions, thank you for the charcuterie boards. Thank you for coming. Our next 6 slides, we're going to be in the Hood River on January 9th. We are going to be talking about innovation, what that means. I don't like the word, even though it's involved in the Innovation Hub, because you say it and who knows what it means. But we're going to talk about what that means on the everyday level. So I'm really excited for that conversation.
I'm really inspired.
Hang out. If you haven't met someone, meet someone new. Thank you.
Thank you.